I chose this haircut when I was a design student. I tried all sorts of different styles and realized this bowl cut really suited me. I felt like myself. This might sound funny, but this haircut helps me think. My head is well ventilated, which I suppose is important in my line of work. I've always said design is 80% thinking. Wearing glasses is also a way of expressing your personality, as someone whose eyes are open and always curious.
Matali Crasset lives and works at her home studio with her husband Francis. For this hyperactive and hyper-productive designer, this space and the rituals attached to it create the perfect environment for constant experimentation. Matali particularly enjoys early mornings before her team arrives. This is the perfect moment to reflect on whether yesterday's ideas have made it through the night. Some of her current ideas have lately been centered on a rather unusual commission from the Centre Pompidou. The project is intended for children and must be completed within a few months.
I wanted it to be reminiscent of a children's school show where kids are singing and dancing together to create a moment of wonder. I reimagined the merry-go-round, which isn't only itinerant and interactive, it also comes with a sing-along story called Saul et les Hoopies. This project erases the line between design and art. It's my way of seeing things.
The merry-go-round represents a weeping willow protecting an imaginary ecosystem. It was conceived like a fairy tale with characters from the natural environment.
We have funny worms, a good evil wolf, a granny tree stump, 3 squirrels, and some weather-related characters. Miss Rain Shower, Mrs. Sunshine, and Mr. Rainbow. Mary Poppins inspired me when I created Miss Rain Shower's umbrella.
The plans are complete and ready to be sent to the builders.
We are extremely lucky to have landed in this repurposed factory. A dozen families live here. I now realize I recreated an environment of a similar size to the village where I grew up, about 80 people. I'm glad I live in Belleville because this is a part of Paris that is still alive. I wouldn't have liked to live in one of the museum-like areas of Paris. Here, there's still a strong need for change, and that's important for me in my work as a designer.
Matali was in charge of redesigning the iconic Parisian kiosks. She turned them into quaint shared living spaces, all whilst keeping their original green colour as a reminder that these kiosks used to be situated in gardens. Her aim was to make these places feel more open and contemporary. Matali studied at the prestigious École Nationale Supérieure de Création Industrielle, known for its innovative techniques in teaching. Here, pupils learn through collaborating on projects together with alumni students, which helps young designers build up confidence in their work.
When I left this school, the first thing I wanted to do was to cut the umbilical cord. I'm sure you'll agree, this is a great school and it's hard to leave.
Yes, the school absorbs us.
Correct. You want to make the pleasure last. I decided to go and work abroad as I knew this would allow me to disconnect. So I worked in Italy for Denis Santa Chiara. Milan was my first work experience. Then I worked on a project for Thomson Multimedia with Philip Stark for 5 years, designing radios and other electronic devices. It was great because it is quite rare for a young designer to have this kind of opportunity. And working with Stark meant pushing the limits. Plus, I was in charge of the project. When you end your studies, it becomes much more difficult to find your own approach. This place is an accelerator. You're not working on one project, you're working on 30 projects. People take you seriously here. When I started working for a big company, I would go around the office asking questions, wanting to collaborate with everyone. But I realized that wasn't how things functioned in the workplace. It's important to keep that innocence, that candor, because it can be a motor and help us collaborate differently. We have a small team working at the home studio. The idea is to act as artisans of design. Francis, the manager, has many tasks. He reads emails, looks after the publishing, our legal affairs. This allows me to really focus on the creative aspect of things. Francis also cooks delicious meals every day for lunch, providing the team with the necessary healthy energy. Florian, are you ready for lunch? This is one of my favorite dishes. Florian is my assistant. Other long-term collaborators also come to join us at mealtimes. Benjamin is in charge of animating graphic elements because we have the habit of creating animations to go with our creations. Jean-Denis has been our advisor for years when it comes to anything digital. As soon as I have a project including electronics or anything digital, we work on it together. For instance, he picked out the audio equipment for the Saul and the Hoppies merry-go-round.
Matali is no fetishist. Once designed, her objects lead their own lives. Her most iconic objects are mobile and modular, and shake up the dated concept of static furniture. Here are 4 of those objects.
Soundstation is a radio I designed for Thomson when I was working with Stark. Radios were still mostly just black boxes. I had the idea of connecting the electronic card directly to a speaker shaped like an open mouth. The card is placed at the back of the speaker and has a skin-like finish. It works as an interface for the user. Quand Gilles monte à Paris is an extra bed for guests. It doesn't take up much space when it is stored vertically. When Jim arrives, you roll it out to unfold the bed. More than just a bed, it's an object that creates a new space, as it comes with a lamp and an alarm clock. The digestion sofa is a modular couch. For the prototype, I stuffed a large plastic bag with foam. The couch consists of multiple bags with handles, which makes all the difference. They allow the user to create seating arrangements for one or several people and can even be piled up to make some extra space. I had the idea for this lamp when I heard someone talking on the radio about his memories of the early days of electricity. It's wireless, which means that you can carry it around like a candle, and its shape is reminiscent of the lamps used by railroads employees.
At the age of 26, when she was working for Stark, Matali was put in charge of Thomson's Department of Design. Today she is working with Thomson again on the creation of a connected luminous mobile speaker intended for a broader audience.
Aujourd'hui, en fait, on s'est intéressé au fait que ça fait 25 ans.
We wanted to honor the fact that Thom has existed for 25 years.
On a pris cet anniversaire.
We used this anniversary as inspiration for this project, as a way to look back on the roots of the team. The team has existed for 25 years, since 1994. We're trying to show that the adventure continues on.
Sinon, les retours qu'on a eu à l'IFA, on a eu de nombreux journalistes, de nombreux...
We've had great feedback from many journalists and big distribution buyers. They like the product. They like the material. It doesn't have that shiny aspect that has become...
It's nearly as if we had made them forget it's plastic.
Interestingly, we haven't had any issues concerning the price. We spoke about the product, its aesthetics, and the interest of having collaborated with you.
We are not in the usual register, not using the usual codes.
Intéressant, c'est qu'on a eu beaucoup de
A lot of people chose to position it on its side like so,
On sent le côté
like some sort of sound cannon.
de la musique, c'est assez intéressant.
Indeed, you could set it up that way on a shelf. Then comes the question of colors. I think it would be worse considering one or two other complementary colors. Have one of them be more neutral.
What do you have in mind? Something more metallic? To make it look a bit more techy? Or not?
Je pense que
I think the overall shape of it,
Isn't techy.
no, it isn't, so
Give it a little something.
Something a little fancy.
Right, something a bit fancy. It's true that it is a bit outdoorsy.
and something more homely.
Okay, great. Let's roll with it. Bye.
See you soon.
See you soon.
Bye, Francis.
Merci.
Today marks a crucial step in the Saul and the Hoopies project. Songwriter and composer Dominique Dalquin has just sent over the songs. Benjamin is working on a teaser to promote this modern-age merry-go-round.
Dis-moi, Hoop, tu crois qu'on va trouver de l'énergie ici?
Oh oui, je vois beaucoup d'enfants et même quelques parents qui arrivent.
I imagine this story in which a child, Hoop, is rescued from drowning by a whipping willow with environmental magical powers.
Dame Soleil, Rainbow, et la giboulée.
Il lui offre le pouvoir.
He gives him the power to communicate with plants and endangered animals.
Les enfants, coiffez-vous de vos houpettes magiques et venez nous rejoindre.
They travel from place to place, inviting children to join the Hoopies and to begin symbolically fixing our world. My hope is that this humble little tale will lead to some environmental awareness. I came from a small village called Normé. I grew up in a farming family. It is rare that we are all together in the same place.
Okay, are you ready?
Okay, 1, 2, 3, and we switch. Here, I'm with my two brothers, my daughter Popeline, Daddy Cool, my father, and my twin sister Véronique. She looks more like my mom, who is no longer with us. I look more like my dad. Which one is which in this one?
At that age, hard to tell.
Even Mum sometimes gives medication to the wrong one.
How did you manage to tell them apart?
Looks like Mum did those haircuts.
Why are you laughing?
Because although she tried, she wasn't able to give us the same haircut twice. Look, this is Danielle and Michel.
Oh, they're cute.
Look how mischievous Mom looks.
She's wearing a ponytail? Are you sure that's Mom?
Yes, it's written on the back, Danielle and Michel.
Being a twin is hard to explain. It's a completely different take on life. We are real twins from the same oval. Véronique always had a passion for cinema, and from a very young age, she knew she wanted to work in cinema. My vocation came later, because I think that for a long time, I didn't allow myself to be a designer. We were both very interested in culture. Being together made it easier to move to Paris.
Many aspects of her life inspire Matali's work. Maybe the inspiration for Saul and Les Hoopies can be found here, in the garden where she spent her childhood.
This is where we would come to play with Véronique. See, there's like an opening, like a door for us to get in. It's become very big.
It's 40 years old.
Did you plant this one?
Yes,
Really? I didn't remember you had planted it.
I certainly did. I would have done better to plant something else.
No, whipping willows are beautiful.
They're beautiful.
I remember playing this willow. It's like a sort of den. You're half hidden, but you can still see what's going on outside. You feel included within a space. Many of my projects revolved around that idea of a space that is both opened and closed. I'll often be inspired by elements in nature, which I will transform in my own way. This is a place where you can imagine things, a place where stories begin. When you're a child, all you need is a den, and your imagination will do the rest. Don't underestimate the importance of you planting this willow.
Really?
Yes, it's had purpose. Is it the sky that makes everything look white here? It somehow blends in with the chalky white earth. Today, everything is particularly gray, but I have the memory of growing up surrounded by white. A white environment is useful because it's like a blank canvas for your imagination. That was useful for me. It helped me project my ideas. I spent hours and hours watching Dad work. He had his own methods when working on something. He would have all his tools laid out on the ground, and he would begin this kind of choreography going back and forth tremendously fast, as I recall. And I spent a lot of time watching him work. So when I entered design school, I wasn't afraid to work in a metal workshop. It felt familiar. I started making metal prototypes. It's a bit different for a woman, for a young girl, to acquire soldering skills, etc. I know I felt comfortable in the metal workshop because of the time I spent watching you work. I wasn't apprehensive at all.
Today, Matali is visiting Patrick in his metal workshop. She's come to meet her life-size hoopies for the first time. Saul is made entirely out of metal. He needs to be extra resistant as he will soon be traveling from town to town.
He looks bigger than in the sketch, don't you think?
It's over 9 meters across. It always feels bigger when you are looking out from the inside rather than looking in.
As usual in her work, Matali is interested in the relationship between objects and their users. Saul is an environmentalist, so grown-ups have to pedal to keep the children spinning.
You can't feel any resistance. It's very easy to make it spin. The stump looks great, don't you think? It's going to be orange. Patrick has a deep understanding of the artist's intentions. By instinct, he identifies weak spots, sensitive areas. For me, it's a luxury because it allows me to dive into a project without having to worry about how complex it is to render.
That works.
Yes, it does. Have you tightened those two as well? Top and bottom? Are all the animals finished?
They're all done. Even the squirrels.
That must have been the hardest part, right?
Yes, they were quite a bit of work. They've turned out nicely.
Yeah, they all look great. I'm happy we stuck to the idea of making them only out of tubes, even if it made the building process more complex. Francis and I met 20 years ago. He was interested in art and was working at a gallery. I had finally found my alter ego and someone whom I could speak to. Francis is from Dijon. We would often go there to the Consortium Museum to discover marginal and inspiring contemporary art. At the time, we weren't acquainted with Franck Gautreau, one of its founders. I was far from imagining he would one day commission some of my work.
These are the exhibitions from 1999 to 2017.
That's me.
No, is that really you? Seeing these images has a special significance for us. Visiting the Consortium was our introduction to the world of contemporary art.
It made for a good weekend stroll. We would go to the market and buy some cheese that we would bring back to Dijon. Then we would go to the Consortium.
Not bad, huh? Cheese and contemporary art?
And we didn't always get it.
No, we didn't. We would go and see an exhibition thinking, so, this is contemporary art. We thought we understood what contemporary art was. Then we would go back and it would be something completely different.
We discovered a lot of things at the Centre Pompidou, but here we felt like things were less smoothed over, more challenging. Sometimes we would leave feeling angry or frustrated, or just confused.
We quickly understood the importance of this, the importance of being challenged. I remember this little bookshop and this little tea room. I enjoyed those at the time. Maybe this exhibition was the closest in spirit to what I do nowadays. I wanted to create a space that had more to do with the friendly relations than with contemporary art. I didn't realize that approach could apply to modern art.
When I came to your commission, the design of our new library, I felt like the loop had been completed. Your history with Dijon and the Consortium has come full circle. You're now literally part of the museum. When you ask someone to design a library, you expect shelves on the wall and tables spread across the room. No one else could have imagined the project you came up with.
It's a direct reference to Fahrenheit 451. It was the first time I saw something really aesthetic in one of Truffaut's movies. I drew inspiration from the color palette, and when I saw the scene with the monorail, both projects instantly merged. I decided I would design a suspended library. Its modular design would reflect the carriages. It corresponded to my desire not to create a static space.
Matali has often drawn inspiration from thinkers from the past. Pragmatism, which consists in adapting to the constraints of life, is directly reflected in her work. On the other hand, utopian theories help her theorize the inner works of how society functions. While spending time in Chicago, Matali was marked by the story of Jane Addams. Jane Addams was a philosopher, sociologist, and a feminist activist at the end of the 19th century. She worked on the welfare of immigrants and created a community in Chicago based on cooperation and respect. First, she created Hull House, designed to give shelter to children in need. A dozen other houses were built to eventually form an entire neighborhood. In a certain way, Jane Addams created urban sociology through exploring the limits of social diversity. This exceptional woman inspired Matali to write a book about communities. She asked Alexandra Midal to assist her on the project.
I was thinking we should start out with her from the point of view of design, history, politics, or sociology. She seems to be the main figure to have inspired your work. She's the main reference, right?
Yes. I really love how pragmatic she was. She started out by helping children with the Hull House, where she decided there should be art on the walls, because after all, why not? And she created an exhibition center where the parents who were working in factories could showcase the skills of their previous line of work. These were people who felt disenfranchised by working on factory production lines, where their previously developed skills became obsolete. Jewels and many other artifacts were put on display, and she provided an entire generation with a form of renewed dignity. I like the idea of beginning at the turn of a century to illustrate the link between Jane Addams and...
1889, right?
Yes, just before the turn of the century. I like to think that Gaudin was maybe the first designer and the inventor of social economy. Gaudin used his industrial power and wealth to develop a community and look after its members. He improved their living conditions, provided education. He was more interested in improving people's daily lives than just making a profit. He had a number of buildings built. He was the first to organize childcare at the workplace and even personally designed furniture for the nursery, like the cradles and the benches. He was interested in alternative educational systems and creates his own version
of education.
So the kids went to 4 different kinds of school.
By age group?
Yes, it was a brand new concept. Gaudin had a global vision. To me, he really was a designer because there was a logic behind his thought process. From the overall project down to producing cradles, designed so that the parents would not be woken up.
How did he do it?
He would put sawdust at the bottom of the cradle. The baby's pee was absorbed, and it avoided waking up the parents.
That's practical thinking.
How incredible.
So it was all about community life, and it was a way of creating events. Many cultural events were organized.
Hence the importance of these huge courtyards.
The Children's Ball.
Labor Day was the biggest event of the year. He was a man with strong values, someone who was anchored and stable, with great intuition.
You can tell he aspires to real social transformations.
These people had aspirations because they were in the action, creating new structures and new tools. To me, design nowadays is mostly about creating tools rather than creating objects.
I think it's important that we point out the genealogical aspect of the history of design, in which you find your place as a woman designer.
Matali is particularly attached to designing spaces intended for children and measures the importance of what happens within those spaces. La Maison des Petits, inspired by Françoise Dolto's Maison Verte, is a space dedicated to developing better relationships between young children and their parents. In this experimental space divided into play areas, Nicole Roux and her team are there to listen and watch over the children.
So, kids, what can we do at La Maison des Petits?
We can play, dance, paint, read books, and at least no one bothers us. We can party.
Right, we can party. Are there other places like this?
No.
No, that's right, because this place was made especially for you and you only. So there's only one place like this. My job is to draw objects and places, like this place.
You drew it?
Yes, I drew it. I designed it. The first question I asked myself was, what do children like? Children like to play, right? So I tried to think of different ways to organize how we play, depending on our age. I also tried to find ways for parents and children to be at the same level, to create a different dynamic to the one that exists at home.
In the meantime, we have some masks for you to cut out. These masks were made by Matali because when Matali thinks about children, she tries to think of everything children like the objects, the games, and the furniture. Everything here was designed and made by Matali Crasset. Nothing you see here was brought in a shop and placed here.
We have different animals to choose from. This is a bear. You need to do the same thing on the other side. You have to make the gray part disappear. And normally, it should fit as well. Are you able to see?
In the village of Trébédan in Brittany, Nolwenn Leroy has brought new life to the local school. She and her colleagues collaborated with Matali on the renovation and building of new facilities. 2 new spaces were created for the children, but also for the other village inhabitants who benefit from the space on market days. This strange unfolding truck is called the Mumo and was created by Matali upon being invited to do so by Ingrid Brochard. This mobile museum contains a curiosity cabinet and brings the city's modern art directly to small rural villages. Today is an important day. Saul and Les Uppies is nearly complete.
Wow, look at the color.
The constant handling awaiting Saul requires that every detail be double-checked. Its elements must be solid and mobile without losing their whimsy.
To replace the traditional pom-pom kids have to catch, I created these hybrid puppets, half plant, half animal. It's a complicated project. We've put all of our energy into it. To see that little spark in everyone's eyes makes it worthwhile, because this is a project we worked on all together. For the song about microclimates, I imagined the children improvising with these percussive elements representing microclimates. Miss Rain Shower, Mrs. Sunshine, and Mr. Rainbow.
Un tour en arrière, 3 tours en avant, et réparons le monde. Un tour en arrière, 3 tours en avant, et réparons le monde.
Saul has now been folded up and he's ready to go.
In the forests of the Meuse region, Pascal Yonnet is in charge of an open-air museum known as Le Vent des Forêts, or Forest Winds in English. Artist residencies are organised by the locals who help the artists materialise their project. Matali was compelled to take part in the project. She created the forest cabins, each with their specificity relating to the forest environment. Here, a traditional thatched roof brings contrast to this otherwise modern building, designed to resemble a hazelnut. The bird's nest is designed to be the perfect space to listen to bird calls.
Have you had any feedback? Is there anything we can improve?
No, we've only had positive feedback.
Second night at the bird's nest 4 years after the first, and it has kept the same level of charm. Better weather this time around made the stay even more enjoyable. Breakfast time with nothing but the murmur of the wind in the trees, the forest winds. The updated furniture is great. This space makes you a human being again. Thank you for this magical place. For me, the richness of this project comes from the collaboration between the region's different artisans who are taking part in the creation of these forest cabins. This is how I met Philippe Huet, who is both a wood turner and a volunteer firefighter. Did you choose to become a wood turner, or were you not given the choice?
I fell into this world as a child. It makes me happy to make things out of the ordinary.
Right.
I enjoy that.
It makes you think.
Yes, you always have to be thinking. The reason I'm still of any use is because we make custom pieces that others can't make because they don't have the skills. They might have a digital wood turner, but they don't have the skills.
You have to really know your wood.
That's right.
The idea for this series of plates is to have the lip of each plate be...
Yes, have the lip be like so. This plate will have its pretty side. To not damage the piece, we start by turning the back of the plate to have it nice and smooth. Then we proceed to carving the other side.
You have to think of which side is better suited. Have you checked the speed?
We're in the right gear. On medium speed. High speed would be too much.
Where exactly are your blueprints?
You need to have them in your head.
Here, for instance, you haven't written down Matali's plate.
Really? Didn't I write it down? Let's turn this on. See, we can already see the shape. I need to tone it down, make a few tweaks and modifications. Like here, you see? And then I just sand it down.
I remember doing a bit of wood turning in school.
By hand?
Yes. The first time you give it a go, it's rather impressive. You mustn't be afraid.
Right, you can be afraid. Let's go take a look at your plates.
Here's a full series.
This is a medium one?
I call it the small soup plate.
See, you just stack them up and you have the full set.
It looks great.
Look. I never get bored of making pieces like these.
They're beautiful pieces. Maybe next time we could make a set of small tools. That's one of your specialties, right?
I can make all sorts of stuff.
I really love those wooden handles.
The prestigious ceramics factory in Sèvres was established in the 18th century. Far from resting on its past glories, it now collaborates with many contemporary artists.
I've always stayed away from designing vases because people always imagine designers spend their time drawing them. Here, I decided to merge two shapes of vases I found in their archives, which enabled me to come up with a system of my own. It was fun to discover that the second shape, when placed on top of the first, made it look like the vase was wearing a cape. All of a sudden, the object is anthropomorphized. The next step is to sort through our options in terms of colors and textures, a bit like in fashion, but this time with ceramics. No, it isn't dense enough.
For those large pieces, it all depends on whether they're colored or not.
Here we picked some pink and purple with a bit of fuchsia here. It's our first time trying out this combo.
Maybe that's enough?
I think so too. We need there to be enough contrast, otherwise it looks like there's a hole in the cape. The idea is to have a pattern mimicking a seam, but we can make it to scale, so I've amplified the seams. These dotted lines represent the seams.
So it goes all around the cape?
Yes, it has the same pattern symmetrically on the other side. It would be for this model. We want to keep the idea of the seam, but by making incisions rather than printing a pattern. What would you advise in terms of spacing between the incisions? I think we have to leave more space between them. Otherwise, it will be too fragile. Okay, I'll stop complicating things now.
But I'm sure you'd like to.
I've reached my maximum, I think. I've given everyone a bit of work, a bit of a challenge. I dreamt of a singular hotel, the Dari, by the palm grove of Nefta in Tunisia. I wanted to create an environmentally friendly retreat designed in harmony with its natural surroundings and local population, a new concept in hospitality and serenity. It offers both a reconnection with oneself and an opening onto a different form of reality.
When she conceived the Dahi Hotel, Matali immersed herself in Tunisian culture for 3 years. André Ravareau's work on North African architecture gave her the necessary tools to comprehend local culture and quickly helped her find her own approach. Despite its simple appearance, it is a complex building that takes into account the local climate and Saul specificities.
When I come into Tunisia, I like to give in to the serenity of the place, but I also come back because the project is forever evolving.
Philippe and Patrick, the owners and long-term accomplices of Matali, have provided her with the perfect space for her to express her skills in creating real-life experiences. From the very start, the idea was to challenge the codes of the hospitality business in the modern world. To do so, they only employed local Tunisian companies and artisans. Mohamed, the architect who helped build the Dahi Hotel, is never far, standing by to support their ideas for new extensions. To bring new life to the palm grove that had been abandoned by the locals, Matali, Philippe and Patrick developed the Palm Lab project. Its aim is to implicate the local population and invite them to come and be initiated to the concept of permaculture.
We're lucky this year, we have dates.
We picked some yesterday.
We have organic dates.
Just in 1 year, with a bit of upkeep.
See how the trunk is.
There's another one growing next to it.
Moringas are native African plants.
They don't require much water, 40 times less than a palm tree.
That's the best part.
The goal with the Palm Lab project is to experiment with the different species we can plant in the oasis.
Well, you can see everything is growing.
We're hoping the local farmers will come together around this project. The local women here don't have jobs, and they aren't used to going to the oasis. We're hoping to encourage them to come and work the soil.
Then we can buy the produce, like dried leaves for infusions, so there is an economical incentive for them to continue cultivating the land.
Let's put this down inside. To create this educational lodge, I was inspired by a palm tree. It's like my Tunisian willow. Once it's finished, the lodge will become a place to come and hang out and chat, drink some tea and learn about permaculture. One of the entrances will double as a tool cabinet for the locals. I'll help you hold it up. It needs to be well aligned. We have to be able to lift it like so that people can still sit here if they wish to. We leave this part open. It's an open house. Only the tools and the seeds remain in the closed cabinet. The local women and their traditions inspired me when I began designing the hotel. At the entrance of every house in this area, there is a weaving loom called a skifa. It normally only benefits the family. The idea was to integrate local resources in a respectful way, without imposing our Western production-based system.
Before you were making a carpet, and now you're making a rug?
You only need one of those. They're very warm. The wool is beautiful. You can tell it hasn't been treated. We have our rituals with Patrick and Philippe. We like to go into the desert. It's our way of reconnecting, and it allows us to continue creating things together. It's like an affirmation of our little community.
Saul is momentarily laying roots in front of the Pompidou Center and is awaiting the visit of the very first hoopies. A class of Parisian schoolchildren has been preparing for this encounter for the past week by becoming familiar with the environmentally friendly, musical and magical world of Saul. The children are finalizing a model version of the merry-go-round before finally getting to meet Saul for real, and they also get to meet Matali.
Do you each have a question?
Yes, I have 2 questions. Why is your name Matali?
Matali. What do you think? Is Matali truly my real name?
No.
My name is Matali, but my real name is actually Nathalie. I used to work with young children. What is the first word children say when they are really small? They say mama. So they would call me Matali, and I liked it. Little by little, my family back home started calling me Matali, and the name stuck.
Why did you choose this line of work?
Why did I choose to do this? That's a very important question. I wanted this to be my job because I felt like I needed to share something with other people to make suggestions and try and make the Earth a slightly nicer place. Maybe not the planet itself, that's too big, but at least improve the world directly surrounding us. It's kind of the same thing Saul does. Do you know the Pompidou Center? Have some of you been already?
Yes, yes.
Why do you think I had the idea of inventing Saul?
Because you liked willows when you were little?
Yes, that's true. I had a willow in my garden.
Maybe to save nature?
I wanted to start off from a character that would be a kind of environmental magician, a character that cares.
Also because children have fun with him?
Of course, that's its main purpose. And he's there for children to give him all their energy. When you meet Saul, every one of you will have to participate to create a special, slightly privileged moment. A moment that is a bit magical. This is about how we can quite easily bring a bit of magic into the world through a story and a character. Everything takes place in the weeping willow, and this weeping willow is magical. Have you understood in what way it is magical? Yes, tell me.
Saul is magical. He can spin once in one direction and 3 times in the other. When he spins 3 times, he makes the right choice for nature.
Right. He can fix the world. So why do we have to fix the world?
Humans throw paper on the ground, they litter.
And who is helping him fix the world?
The hoopies.
Yes. So today you are also going to become hoopies. And little by little, you will become closer to nature and animals. And how do we give him energy?
By being happy.
Yes, by being happy.
By singing.
And singing, right. It's with our singing and the good mood we all share that we are going to give him the energy to fix the world.
Hi kids! How is everyone? Please come in. Let's go. Let's have a look. Do you know what this one is? Yes, it's a wolf. And here we have the microclimates. That's Mr. Rainbow. What are those with the tiny eyes? Yes, worms. What else do we have here? The little squirrels, right.
Are you sure you're not Mrs. Sunshine? You're yellow, like the sun.
Keep clapping, Mr. Rainbow, Mrs. Sunshine, Miss Rain Shower. Do you remember where you have to go? Come on, squirrels, come on, wolves.
Attention, ça va être le grand choc. On est chaud, on est en bloc, on est à bloc. On la pêche avec nos hoops super magiques. On sait chanter avec nous, c'est écologique. 3 tours en arrière et 1 tour en avant. Comme vous verrez, c'est très marrant. Même console, les seront partis. On sera là pour vous donner de l'énergie.
Well done, Hoopies.
It is now time for Saul to begin his journey across France's villages, hopefully sowing the seeds of his ecological message. And I will continue to imagine tomorrow's world. I like to continue looking forward. A kitchen with a vegetable garden terrace above it, complete with a mobile compost container? Why not? I'll think about it tomorrow. A good night's sleep is always good counsel.